So big political developments here in the UK in the last 24 hours. I'm just going to run through them a bit and share a few of my thoughts. I may just be repeating things that people have already heard, so apologies in advance for that. But just to kind of summarize, so the Home Secretary Amber Rudd resigned yesterday, quite late last night, when it became clear that her position was no longer tenable. And the core issue here was that she had misled MPs by suggesting that the UK had no immigration targets when in fact local targets do exist. Um, and it seemed that she made her position more untenable by appearing to blame civil servants in her department. You know, the Home Office is a department that is often seen as a poison chalice. Very few Home Secretaries last more than a few years. In fact, the current Prime Minister, for those of my viewers who are outside the UK, was in this department for 6 years, which is highly unusual. And May was seen as actually quite a strong Home Secretary. Amber Rudd was only the third woman after Theresa May and Jackie Smith in the Brown administration. So who replaces her? Sajid Javid. Um, he's made history. He is the first BME Briton to occupy one of the four great offices of state. Now, some will point out that Benjamin Disraeli had been prime minister before, but Disraeli had to convert from Judaism to Anglicanism. Also, I'm talking about people who are visibly minority, i.e., black and Asian. So Sajid Javid has made history today. What do we know about him? He's 48 years old. He is arguably on the right of the party, at least. He is pro Brexit. He was born in Rochdale and he is, I believe, third generation Pakistani. Um, it's going to cause a lot of commentary, that in itself, because the four great officers of state, Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, in the several hundred years of their existence, this is the first time that someone from a visible minority has taken up one of those roles. So it is quite a poignant moment. But I don't think it's a case of virtue signalling. I think that Mr. Javid has a lot of experience. He served as business secretary, he was communities minister. James Brockenshire now becomes a new communities minister. Penny Mordaunt becomes a new minister for women and equalities. That had been a post shared by Amber Rudd um, since Justine Greening resigned in January. Um, And what his first announcement, his first speech, so to speak, on taking up this role was that his priority is dealing with the fallout from the Windrush scandal. That's understandable because that is the very scandal that has triggered Rudd's departure, although the actual reason was her misleading MPs. But it's very much there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on how Mr. Javid does his job and on also whether this is actually showing May in a weak position. Labour will no doubt be enthusiastic about it, but they, of course, have their own skeletons with the whole anti Semitism thing. I think it'll be interesting to see what the results are in the local elections. Just a few words about the Home Office. There is some speculation and some debate about whether the department should be cut down or whether it should be subdivided. At the moment, the Home Secretary's brief covers everything from law and justice to immigration to counter-terrorism. It's a very, very important role in government. And there have been a few Home Secretaries who have went on to become Prime Minister. Just off the top of my head, James Callaghan and Theresa May are two examples. So it's a very important government office. Um, Certainly, the Windrush thing will be Javid's priority, but there will be other things as well. Rising violent crime. I think he should work very closely with um, Sadiq Khan in London to deal with that chronic problem that London is facing of knife crime and also across the country. 2018 so far hasn't seen the same level of jihadist terrorism as 2017, but that doesn't mean the problem has gone away. Also, with the situation with Russia, these are all issues that will come under the Home Office domain. although the Russia thing also obviously comes under the Foreign Office. So it is a very, very difficult role. It has been described as a poison chalice. So for the sake of the country, I wish Sajid Javid well in this role. Um, Now, in terms of his background, his identity, one thing I like about Javid is that he doesn't push identity politics. He's not always saying, "I am a Muslim, I am British Pakistani." He just kind of gets on with it, and that is part of his identity. It's he is a British Pakistani, and today is historic, whatever way you look at it. But he doesn't rely on that, and I find that very that's something I really respect. Um, I think identity politics can be very divisive and cynical, actually. So I respect that about Javid. Another thing I like about him is, whilst he's from a Pakistani background, there's no indication that if he is religious, I don't know if he is or not, but from previous interviews, I've got the impression he's not particularly religious. So that secularism is a very important thing. You wouldn't want a Home Secretary who is pontificates about the religion or constantly brings it into the politics. Khan, as mayor of London, he's no Islamist, but there are times I think he is too hesitant to directly talk about the problem of Islamic extremism. He'll talk about terrorism, but he's been very vocal on issues of racism and the far right, which is fine. But basically, at the moment, Javid and Khan are the two most prominent ethnic minority MPs in the country. Diane Abbott, I guess you could say as well, but I think it's unlikely that she's going to ever get into the Home Office because she's just seen as incompetent almost across the board. Even many left leaning people, I don't think, have a great deal of confidence in her. A quick word about Diane Abbott. I condemn any racist abuse of her online, and I have seen it. It's wrong. But Diane Abbott herself has not shied away from controversy. This is relevant because she's the Shadow Home Secretary. She's not shied away from controversy. This is a woman who publicly tried to downplay the crimes of Chairman Mao. I mean, imagine had a Conservative or Liberal Democrat or even Labour MP tried to downplay Hitler's crimes, they would be facing calls for sack the following day. So, he's going to be under enormous pressure to deal with all of these issues. And I just hope that he can address them. And I hope that the junior ministers in his department help him in that regard, and he helps them. I hope there's a good working relationship because it is a big department, and I think sometimes you wonder are government departments too big. I mean, of course, there are junior ministers who have a brief for specific job roles, but maybe the Home Office does need to be broken down. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about that. But time will tell whether Sajid Javid will be a strong Home Secretary or not. Like I say, a lot of ministers have come and gone from this office, and that's essentially ended their political career. It's highly unlikely that Amber Rudd, for example, will now ever occupy Downing Street when she was once named as a possible successor. In fact, Amber Rudd had the quickest promotion of any minister since the Second World War. Sajid Javid, I believe, had a bit more experience before being elevated to this. But time will tell. Let me know your thoughts.